To start today's podcast, I want to tell you a story from back when I was in college. I went to Kansas State University. Before I was in my first classroom that freshman year, I was homeschooled. I like to tell people that I went from a class of one to a class of everyone. It was pretty intimidating to go from teaching myself and asking my mom questions on my Saxon math homework and then going to a lecture hall where there were over 300 people all learning about calculus, something that I wasn't super comfortable with. I thought calculus was some sort of voodoo magic thing. When it came to my approach, going from a class of one to a class of everyone, I wanted to be on top of the material. I wanted to be one step ahead of the game the entire time. I heard that it was advantageous to take your textbooks that you had for your classes and read the chapters, read ahead, so that you would know what was going to be taught in class. It wasn't the first time you were going to be exposed to that material. That was supposed to help you do better. I did my best. Chemistry was something that scared me a lot. I read the first 2 chapters of my chemistry textbook in an effort to get ahead and not be as anxious about the material. To my horror, the first day of chemistry lecture, the teacher said that everything in chapters 1 and 2 we should remember from high school. I had never taken a class as a prerequisite in my homeschooling that would have covered those first 2 chapters. The teacher said that we were going to start by jumping right into chapter 3, and that was what they were covering on day 1. I went from being 2 chapters ahead in the textbook to being behind by a full chapter. This was terrifying to me. This pattern would be something that would be repeated in future classes. I would feel like I would get a little bit ahead, only to find that I had, in the blink of an eye, fallen behind. It wasn't the way that I wanted to operate. It wasn't the way that it was recommended to me on how to operate. I was also very much so a perfectionist when I was taking my freshman classes. It was something that was a part of my identity. I couldn't be the perfectionist that I wanted to be. I couldn't be 2 weeks ahead on all of my homework, on all of the textbook reading. I didn't have the time to do everything that I wanted to do. In my time at K-State, I was always taking somewhere between 15 and 18 credit hours. As a result, I switched from a perfectionistic mode of academic learning to a survival mode of academic learning. I did not have enough time to pour into the classes to do what I wanted to do and learn at the pace that I was comfortable with. Things were going to be moving faster, and I had to find a way to be more efficient. And unfortunately, that meant that some of the things that I wanted to cover, some of the things I thought would help me be a perfect student, had to be left on the table. They had to be left behind, and I just needed to keep moving forward. What did the survival mode look like in practice? What I would do is I would take all of the textbooks and homework and folders, and I would stack them so that the highest priority item, what was due soonest, was at the top of my pile. And the assignment that I had received that was due later on, or was the lowest priority, was on the bottom of the pile. In taking the stack of books, it helped me basically make a priority list without actually writing it down. And for the chunks of time that I had to study in between classes or at home or in the morning, all I would have to do was go through that stack from top to bottom and work as diligently and efficiently as I could until I ran out of time. Typically, running out of time was running into another class or getting so tired that I couldn't continue. I knew for what was due the next day or what was due that day, how far I had to get down the pile. And anything beyond that was what I could be doing to try to stay ahead of the game and prevent myself from feeling like I was falling behind. This sort of survival mode that I was in is something that has carried into my adulthood post-graduation. Being able to recognize what my priorities were and work through them in an appropriate order while knowing that there are sometimes, for the benefit of moving forward, things I had to leave on the table. I had to learn that that was okay, and it was okay not to be perfect. It was more important to make sure that priorities were getting the attention that they needed, and in a timely manner and in an efficient manner, and in a way that I could frame my overall workload and do the best that I could with the time that I had.